All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with someone who has been making music in and around Winnipeg for a long time now, and I guess I've just never thought to reach out to you before to have you on the show. I mean, I've definitely listened to your stuff at numerous points over the years, and I've seen you live, including fairly recently. But you have a new record that came out, about a month ago from when we're recording this, so it seemed like a good time to get in touch and then try to have you on the show. So I think that before we get into any of that, the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself and give just a bit of background about what it is you do as an artist.
Sure. My name's Grant. I perform under the name Slow Leaves, and I've put out several records under that moniker now. And what do I do? I write songs, mostly about my life and the people in my life and life in general. And yeah, I guess that's about it.
Right on. How long have you actually been doing this? Because it's been a while. I mean, I have one of your albums under your own name before you switched to the Slow Leaves moniker, and I've definitely seen you perform at various points over the years under both names. What's sort of the timeline on this project?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I put out a few records under my own name, kind of shoestring budget albums. And at the time I had like various other jobs. I was sort of had one foot in the work world, one foot in music, but never really committed to a career in any way. I have a university degree that I've never used. Um, and because I wanted to leave the door open for music, and I never really did anything. And so I was sort of in this kind of limbo for several years, and kind of felt like, I was still writing songs and making music, and it was an important part of my life. And there was some part of me that just was like uh, continually in knots, feeling like, my inner self was slowly dying, because I knew if I didn't really give a proper chance to music, that I would, grow old with regret. And so I sort of see like the beginning of my real music career when I was 33, which
Okay.
is when I quit my day job and sort of uh, decided to give this a proper go. And that's when the next record I put out was under the name change as Slow Leaves.
Well, and it seems like since you've switched to Slow Leaves, especially in recent years, you seem to be getting a lot of attention. I mean, I've definitely seen your records turn up more often. I'm seeing reviews more often. They're turning up more on year-end lists, and whatever you're doing generally seems to be working as far as taking this
Yeah,
taking
that's
this
good.
to a full-time gig, right? I mean, compared to I guess when you were doing it more the DIY under your own name, sort of shoestring, like you said. So what's your take on that? Like, do you feel like this has been kind of slowly progressing into something um, as successful as you hoped?
uh I mean, yes and no. I mean, I was hoping to be far more famous and wealthy at this point, but reality sometimes doesn't do that. Yeah, I feel like it's been a slow burn. And like I said, I think like everybody, part of me wishes there was like an accelerated process of uh, of having more people hear my music, being in front of bigger and bigger audiences, and that does happen, and it is happening, but it takes a long time for me anyway. And I think maybe in part it's because um, I don't think my music is all that exciting or flashy. But the people who do hear it and connect with it seem to connect really strongly and in a personal way. And so yeah, like I said, I think it's been kind of a slow burn. And each album I think reaches new ears. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I guess I hope to just keep making music that I feel is good quality, that I'm proud of, and that I love while I'm making it. And obviously, if people keep liking it, then that's just cherry on top.
Well, I guess that's kind of also goes hand in hand with being a singer songwriter in general too. You're not playing music that is necessarily flashy, and it is going to have that personal touch to it as far as storytelling and songwriting. And that's not necessarily the kind of thing that's going to be a pop radio hit. But like you said, you're
Yeah,
going to sort of build audiences with each record and with each show you play.
yeah. I think that's the hope, and yeah, there's signs of it. I think I just need to live till I'm about 150 years old to kind of accomplish what I hope to accomplish in life. But yeah,
That's the timeline
no
when it
no real
finally pays off.
complaints.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So with this new record that came out, I guess it was end of June, right? That you just released this. Um,
Yeah.
for people who have heard your music before and maybe aren't familiar with this one yet, how would you say the sound has progressed from if someone's familiar with your previous albums and they're kind of coming to this one fresh over the past few years? I mean, I know everyone sort of had this weird time period in recent years because the pandemic sort of slowed everything to a halt as far as shows and recording for a lot of artists and things like that. But if someone's coming to you maybe for the first time in a while, what would you say about this album that maybe has changed or has evolved, I guess?
Hmm. Um, I think it's a good question. I don't know how to answer that really succinctly, but I sort of view the last three records of mine as a sort of collection because um, they uh, I put out an album called Shelf Life that was in 2020, I think, and that was just right at the beginning of the pandemic, so tours are canceled, not all that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
and that record was really I put a lot of like personal meaning into each song. Each song was sort of uh, what I hoped was like a pretty honest take on some aspect of my life, and it was a very personal record. And it was kind of devastating, obviously, to put it out and then just kind of basically have a stillbirth record release. Um, and so during the pandemic, I made another record that year called Holiday, and that to me was like I just took the moment to just not think as hard about the songs that I was making. Not every song had to be some kind of personal manifesto. I just wanted to kind of like have a bit more fun and not take it so seriously. So that record was a little bit of a lighter process for me, and it was me just having fun making songs. And then with this new one, with Meantime, I kind of feel like the process for me was incorporating a bit from both of those worlds,
okay.
and to me that's kind of I feel like it's a good balance of uh, of what I think I do best, which is some of those sort of like the harder hitting kind of raw songs lyrically, and then some toe tappers. All of them, of course, are sort of shrouded in a shade of sadness,
Yeah,
but
there's gloom that
yeah,
permeates it, but in a
yeah.
positive way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say the production's maybe a little slicker in this one. The mixing is a little slicker, and but yeah, I mean, I did the production for this one as well myself, and I played most of the instruments. Um, so I don't know. I think it's my most modern sounding record personally, but
Well, that's
you know,
interesting because I mean, just in listening to it and also reading some of your your bio and promo materials about it, it definitely has. Well, it obviously has this kind of '60s '70s sort of Americana vibe to it, and that's something
mhm.
that is mentioned in your promotional stuff too. And it's interesting you would say it's your most modern sounding record because it certainly has that throwback sort of sound to it. Is that how do you kind of square those two ideas of going back to an older style of music and then also trying to be modern as a 2023 artist?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I can't escape the fact that everything I do is gonna sort of harken back to, you know, the early '70s and things like Bob Dylan
Yeah,
and certain American musicians and English like Brit folk that I really liked. All sorts of like those influences. That's sort of like the sound of that era, and a lot of my favorite stuff comes from there. And it's just like those sounds to me, it's like getting into a warm bath. Like it's so familiar and comfortable. um so of course, yeah, all my stuff sort of has that quality, I think. But I guess the simplest answer is this one I feel sounds a bit more modern, particularly in the mixing.
okay.
Kind of everything's like pretty punchy and sort of uh um what's the word, kind of upfront. The reverbs aren't really thick. It has a bit more of a contemporary sound in that sense. But I think you're right, like the songs themselves for the most part. I mean, I like to think that, or at least I like to try to write songs that could kind of exist in any kind of decade. I
Yeah,
mean, at least since the '60s. um so I don't know, and I think we're living in such a strange time now where there hasn't been really any true innovations in music for a while now, and so I think everything now is kind of up for grabs. Genres are sort of, you know, overlapping, and the boundaries are blurring between those things. So, I mean, you can really incorporate any kind of sound, and I sort of try to do that, but of course, it's all within the sort of the breadth of stuff that speaks to me. So it'll still
Yeah.
have that, I guess, be in that container of vintage retro sound.
uh, you mentioned you play most of the instruments. You're involved in the recording and mixing process and all of those elements of it. And I saw that you did photography for the cover, and this seems to be like a fairly common thing throughout your records. Does that having that much personal involvement in every aspect of it, does that make it? Are you more sort of a do you take reviews and reactions and comments people give you about the records more personally because you've been so involved in every aspect of it rather than if you were just singing and playing guitar and everything else was sort of done by committee or handled by others? Like, are they closer
Yeah,
to home, I guess, because you're kind of fully involved in all parts of it?
yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Like, obviously, over the years, I've had reviews that are some of them are less favorable, or they pick out things that don't work for them, and it's hard not to take it all personally, whether I was producing or playing that part or not, because
Yeah.
ultimately it's my name attached to it. My thoughts are in it. Um, so I don't know. I try. I think what's happened is now I've I'm more confident in what I'm doing now than probably as I ever was before. I'm just going to plug in a little bit, get a
Sure.
low battery.
Yeah, no worries.
Um, and uh, oh, here we go. Sorry,
That's all
technical
good.
issue.
It happens. I used to do these
Yeah,
in person before the pandemic, and now I do them all like this. And every technical issue that can happen has happened.
yeah. So I was just going to say that yeah, I still take it personally, but I try to not, you know, I think I'm better at sort of letting it uh, wash off my back a bit. I mean, to be fair, I haven't had too many bad reviews. Most of them have been quite favorable. So, but it only kind of takes one, and it's easy to focus on the one negative over like all the positives. So, but like the record came out on a German. I have a German record label, and the promotion there, he sent it to like a goth magazine to be reviewed, and he sent
Okay.
me basically this series of like of reviews. It was like five different reviewers, all these short things that I had to translate them, and oh, I just got butchered. It's like, why'd you send me to these guys? It was like getting tossed to the wolves. A couple of them liked it, but a lot of them were kind of like not for them, no surprise. So, but that one's, it's easy to laugh that off, but ultimately, you're vulnerable because you're putting so much of yourself into art. I think any artist kind of feels that, but the hard thing is to try to just like know that what you're doing is good and believe in it, which I try to do. But of course, we all have our moments of doubt.
Yeah, and once it's out in the world, it's out of your hands anyway, right? Your part is finished. Now it's up to people to interpret it and enjoy it or not, however they see fit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think I know what it is, and as I've matured and gotten better at the craft of it, I think with each record I'm more confident that that I feel good about it, that I'm proud of it, and so of course, not everybody's going to like it, right? And I think if everybody does, then there's something wrong there too. So
For sure, for sure. So you mentioned earlier that the last couple of records before this one were sort of released during the pandemic or right before the pandemic. I know you've done this before on multiple other albums over the years, but what is it like now after having kind of no ability to tour on that last one and to promote it and to do all the things you normally would do, and now you're kind of thrust back into it with this new release? What are your sort of plans going forward now that it's out in the world, and how has that changed since what everyone went through over the past 2 3 years?
Yeah, well, I'm currently working on some fall tours, so Canadian tours, East and West. Haven't announced them yet, but will be pretty shortly. Still a few details to sort out, but yeah, so I'll be touring in the fall. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to back to Europe in the
Okay.
new year. So, there's that kind of stuff. I gotta say, like, I mean, the best part for me is always making the music, making the stuff. And once it's out, it's kind of like all the other work, the promotion and all that kind of stuff. I mean, touring, there's great aspects to that too, but
Yeah.
I gotta say that the whole pandemic thing like really suited me because all that stuff was off the table, right? All that stuff was shut down. The touring, the booking shows, all the logistics associated with that, and I could just focus on making music, and that was kind of nice. It really just kind of freed up a whole space in my brain of from things that I didn't have to worry about. So yeah, it's a little funny being back in it now in the full swing of it because I keep thinking like, geez, it's a lot of work.
Well, yeah, especially after that enforced time off. But I guess you have the advantage of being a solo artist too, right? I mean, obviously you do work with other people, but a lot of bands could not get together at all for at least a year and a half, 2 years over that time, and you're able to
Yeah.
write and presumably record and everything, at least demos on your own, right?
Yeah, I was very fortunate for that because definitely there was a point where it felt like what the hell is going on? I got nothing going on, and it was kind of a devastating feeling. I'm sure a lot of people had that kind of similar feeling of dread, like now
Yeah,
what? And in some ways, it kind of saved me because again, I was pretty devastated at this record that I put so much of myself into, and then it was basically squashed. Um, that that was kind of hard. It took me a little while to get past that, and but this thing of just like, why don't I just go downstairs and just like make music, not think too much about it. It really gave me like a purpose in that moment that I really needed. And so yeah, I'm happy and fortunate that I had that ability that at least like I don't have a fancy studio, but I can record quite a bit, but a lot of it is just like yeah, just documenting those ideas. I can do a lot of that on my own, and like I said, that's kind of my favorite part of the process. So
yeah, yeah. That's I guess one of the added benefits that a lot of people had was they had that time, whether they wanted it or not, to
yeah,
work on fleshing out ideas and things like that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So, what's the best way at this point for someone to find your music? I mean, if someone wants to hear Meantime or wants to hear any of your previous releases, where should they go? I know you have physical copies out as well. Where would you direct someone if they want to check out your stuff?
Anywhere, I guess Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, that kind of stuff. Amazon. It's on all the streaming stuff, so that seems to be where most people will find it.
Okay,
But yeah, the physical stuff, the Meantime Records, it's on vinyl as well as CD, so people can get that through the Birthday Cake Records site. And all my other stuff, they can get it through my own website as well. So uh, yeah, it's pretty easy to find music nowadays, so it's out there.
it's true. Yeah, is
Yeah.
all of your other old stuff still in print? Like, or some of those old records just completely uh, unfindable in this day and age?
Uh, no, yeah, I have most of them still in at least CD form, and
Yeah,
a few in vinyl. I've this one and the previous three are all in vinyl, and I still have copies. So yeah,
cool. Cool. And then the good thing about this being a podcast is, someone could hear it the day it comes out, or they could hear it a year from now. And by then, or 2 years, or whenever, by then you could have new music. You could be touring. What's the best way
yeah.
to find out what you have as far as upcoming shows and, things like that?
My website, slowleaves.com. Yeah, whenever I have shows coming up, I list them there. So
Do you have anything in the relatively near future from when we're recording this?
yeah, I have a show with my band at Blue Note Park. The time's changed outside venue there, August 24th.
Right on.
Uh,
Have you
it's it's us and Belle Plaine from Saskatchewan.
have you played there before? I mean, not
Oh
times
yeah,
changed, but at the Blue Note Park there. Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fun. It's a
What do
great
you
space.
what do you think of the it seems like the pandemic has kind of forced and it's a good thing, a lot more venues to get creative with figuring out outdoor locations like that and coming up with new ideas. Has that, do you think that's been a positive for Winnipeg, that venues like Luno Park are coming up and other
Oh
places?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, I think that's one of the great legacies perhaps for our city is yeah, all those outdoor spaces for live music because everybody wants to be outside in the summer and it's kind of amazing we didn't have things like that already,
Yeah,
really. So yeah, I think it's fantastic.
awesome.